What is up, everyone? We're finally back with Ben. We're going to do a deep dive into Ben's game and just see what he was thinking at different stages. We're excited to be back. The finale is now out, so if you haven't seen that, go watch it. There will be spoilers for the finale and the entire season of Survivor LU Genesis. But Ben, let's get right into it, man. Before the game even started, I know that you were strategizing, you were making a plan. Tell us what your initial strategy was coming in and what your hopes were for the game.
Yeah, so my initial strategy came in was to honestly try to convey a sense of authenticity to my teammates. Just to try to convey like that I'm just this honest, genuine person that wants to work with people and that will be a loyal number to them. While trying to keep my shady stuff out of the eyes of other people. Because that's one of the things where like trust is so important in Survivor. And the moment you lose that trust, then you're immediately going to be the next person booted out unless they need you for like a swing vote, but then you're still not with the in group with the alliance. And I wanted to try to establish an early majority with the group. Originally, I think in my interview, I thought it would be like a tribe of 10, like in the actual show. And so I was like, okay, let's make an alliance of 7. And then in the actual game, it ended up being tribes of 8. And so I tried to find an alliance of 5, which ended up like working out when I suggested early on that it would be me, Luke, Alexa, Nathan, and Liz. Even though people were a little hesitant at first to that, it ended up working out in that it really brought us super far in the game.
For sure. So in your initial interviews, you said one of your favorite players was Russell Hantz.
Yes.
I would love to know if you think maybe parts of your game that you tried to emulate Russell Hantz.
Yeah, in terms of parts that I tried to emulate. So, well, one, finding or just trying to be ruthless in finding idols. Even though I never actually found an idol, being the person that willing to like shoot the tribe at the start of the game for the advantage. Russell was well known for like hiding machetes and like other like I guess tribe items to just hurt his tribe just to cause chaos and try to further his own game, as well as being willing to be like cold calculated and ruthless when you need to be. Wasn't always a fan of how mean he was at times, but he was still by far one of my favorite Survivor players in terms of just how he played and just how he just dominated both Samoa and then Heroes versus Villains, which in my opinion, he was robbed of both titles. But again, such is life with a salty jury.
Exactly. Well, hey, we had our Russell Hantz with the social game on Survivor LU, so that was awesome. But Ben, I would love to know as we walked up, as you came in the first day of Survivor LU, just your opening impressions as you talked to people as the whole production started.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's hard because you're just thrown into the mist. I didn't know anybody on the show, and so it's 15 people. I had no idea who they were. And then the 7 people on my tribe. I saw it a lot of just like trying to get a feel for where people are at, as well as, who I think I could work with moving forward. And trying to establish those relationships like early. Because I mean, overall, like David, I got a sketchy vibe from early on, and then like Megan and Addie Grace, I could tell that they were going to be very like strong players if like you didn't try to take them out early. And it seemed like a lot of the other people really agreed with that. But I almost shot myself in the foot week 1, where like I was close to being the first person voted out when I pushed too hard too early for like the formation of alliance and then throwing out names, which really is not what you want to do. And thankfully that didn't turn to bite me in the butt, because that would have been just so sad if I was the first person voted out. But it just goes to show you that while like you want to have a plan going into it, you can't really force that with other people and just take the time to build those alliances before really being like, maybe this person might be the way we should go or something like that.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we're glad that you were not that first person voted out. We would have missed.
I am as well. Trust me.
So it all worked out. But like you said, the twist, it happened, and you were one of 2 people who took it, and the other person who took it was trying to sabotage you by taking it.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me what your game plan is, your mindset when that twist was introduced, and then just kind of, hey, like when you heard that, were you like, hey, I'm taking it, no doubt, or was it a kind of churning
it was,
thought process?
It was a definite, oh, I am absolutely taking that, because I thought I would be able to play it off well enough to where people wouldn't suspect me taking it.
Hmm.
Um, and that I wasn't sure how many other people in my tribe would do that. And so I feel like it's a good gauge of just how, I guess, cutthroat or ruthless a tribe is, just by seeing, oh, if 4 people took it, then man, we got a lot of snakes on our tribe, rather than if it's just like it's 2, or in Tigress's case 0, you see a lot more people being loyal. And so I think it's hard in that environment because, of course, you don't want to be the person to shoot the trap, because if you do get found out, then you're immediately first boot. But at the same time, it's, hey, this is an opportunity to do something that may really further your own game, as well as, like, as long as you keep it under wraps and not go around telling people, because that's an instant red flag if people,
Yeah.
you just go, oh, by the way, I probably caused our tribe to lose. And that when it came across as 2 people, I had a lot of speculations for who it might be. My thoughts were either Luke or David. Luke,
Yeah.
just because he kind of, I don't know, he came off as a strong player and seemed like the type of person that may do that. But then David also, when I think in episode 1, my phone call with him where he mentioned that, oh yeah, it must have been another guy or a guy that took it, because it was a slip of paper that would have fit into their pants, and that
Hmm.
the girls couldn't do it because they didn't have any pockets. And so that immediately was set off a red flag for me, as, again, how would he know that that was a slip of paper that was given to you? And so by calling it dead on exactly what it was, um, I really put a lot of suspicion in my eyes, and made me think that he would also be a very, like, probable candidate for who would have taken it. And if that's the case and he goes home, which he ended up going
Yeah.
first, then that makes me the only person that has that and has knowledge of what it was. And
Hmm.
that can play to my advantage later on, which ended up happening.
For sure. And that was really kind of David's plan, was to pin it on you because he thought he
Yeah.
could easy target, and then be able to be able to have it still. He didn't know that it was you. What did you think about that move? Being able to watch it happen, kind of
You
David's
know,
mindset.
it was honestly very smart, and I think
Hmm.
he could have pulled it off if he was more involved with, like, the tribe and stuff like that. If he really
Yeah.
was intentional about building, like, relationships with the various people, like
Hmm.
him not, like, reaching out to Luke or just kind of only talking to Megan, I feel like that really did kill him, which I'm really grateful for, because I mean, I would have probably gone home first if he actually was involved with the tribe
Yeah.
and was intentional about building those alliances. But thankfully for me, he distanced himself early on, and that kind of caused him to be the target of all the votes on the tribe.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. We would have had a much different game maybe if that move gets pulled
Mm,
off. But let's go into just the beginnings of Gihon. We talked about it earlier. That alliance of 5 forms. What do you think are the keys, and what drew that group together, other than just, hey, we're the last 5 here. Let's make this alliance
mm,
quick. Because, like you did say, there was some hesitation at first.
yeah. So at first, like, for the first 3 votes, it was David, and then it established like a solid 5 where people are like, hey, I mean, we have a majority 5. We don't really need to work outside of that. And then Megan and
Yeah.
Annie Grace are a super strong pair that most likely wouldn't want to work with us long term. And so it just ended up that they ended up being the people voted out. And it was kind of a general alliance of necessity, but also, like, I mean, we became pretty, like, decent friends, and just enjoyed each other's company and hanging out with each other just throughout the
Hmm.
game. And even, like, afterwards, like, I remember, like, last semester we all, like, met up at Panera Bread when Alexa was in town and got to hang out, and it was really nice. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things where those, like, genuine, like, just friendships that you make with people also, I think, build strong alliances, even though those, like, alliances can't last forever, because I
Yeah.
mean, only 3 people make it to final 3 and only one person wins. It still is at that time what was necessary in order to keep us together. And then,
Hmm.
of course, like, Luke's move to take out 2 Tigress members with his, like, 2 idol finds, and to make it 5-5 at the merge, it's like, oh well, I mean, it is in our best interest to take the risk to possibly go to rocks, because if we lose the numbers, Tigress has expressed not having a ton of interest in working with us and just picking us off one by one. And
Hmm.
so that was just a fear in everyone's mind. So it's like, well, this is our best option, so we're sticking to it.
Absolutely. I would love to hear from your perspective. We've heard it from Luke and other players,
Mm-hmm.
just the that Tigress mentality that started to build, and Gihan clearly saw that, and it kind of
Yeah.
did rub you guys the wrong way, and I think set the pace for the game of just your cohesion. What was it from your perspective seeing Tigress really succeed at the beginning, and what it did for your alliance?
Exactly. And so like it really I think drove the five of us together really strongly as after like we took out Addie Grace, Megan, and David, it's like, all right, it's us five versus them because at the time all we knew is what Megan told Luke where she was it even made it into the episode where um she like expressed that, hey, our plan is to pick the rest of you guys off, but if you jump ship with us, Luke, we'll take you in under our wing and we'll protect you.
Yeah,
And that clearly rubbed Luke the wrong way and rubbed all of us the wrong way when he told us about it, because it's like, oh, why would any of us want to play with them at the time when they're just going to like use us as a number and then discard us and it wouldn't make sense for our own game. And so like Luke making that move to take out two of the Tigers, even up 5-5 at the merge. And then the rock draw, it's when I know I'm a very like risk averse person when it comes to making important decisions. And that was one of the hardest ones I made where it's like I could theoretically jump ship and then do try to work my way in with Tigers through like my relationship I made with like Nate and Nicole and Ellie through my time on Pashan. But realistically, I didn't think that would work out because if even though like the Megan plan, as we called it on our tribe, it wasn't actually fully accepted by all the Tigers members when talking to like Nate and Nicole like after the
yeah,
game and kind of like during it.
mhm,
At the time, that's all we really knew, and so I thought it would be in the best interest of my own game to take that big risk to potentially go to rocks. And then if I draw the rock, man, this really sucks. But if it does work out in our favor, which thankfully it
yeah,
did, it put
yeah.
us in a fantastic position to move forward in the game.
Yeah, I think that was a pivotal moment. I think either way it
Mm,
went, if Tigris won that rock draw, that 1 out of 7 chance, I
mm.
think Tigris a member wins the
Oh,
game, and
absolutely.
vice versa. We saw with Gihan winning, a Gihan member won the game, and the Gihan had a significant advantage down the line as well. Not just Nathan winning, but that you
Hmm.
guys had multiple people set up that had a potential of winning at the end. So that
Hmm.
was an absolutely pivotal moment. Like you said, risk really does play a factor in the game, and it's taking the right risk at the right time and not
Hmm.
taking unnecessary risk. So the next part of the game that we really saw you in, but we really actually really didn't see you in, which was why I would love to talk about it, is that tribe swap. You get swapped
Hmm.
onto a tribe. You're the only Gihan member on the Pashan tribe. The other
Yes.
two have a even split. What were your first impressions when you saw that split? And then kind of walk me through just that week, what it was like building those relationships with Nate, Ellie, and Nicole.
Yeah, so it wasn't showed a whole lot in the episode, but yeah, when I saw the split, I was like, man, it's me and three Tigris. I immediately thought I need to win this challenge
Yeah,
because if I don't, I'm most likely going to be booted out unless there's some like Tigris drama that I don't know about that they would be willing to work with me with. And I know that like Nate said that he might have tried to bring in Nicole and me to go
yeah,
vote out Ellie because he had some beef with her. But realistically, I don't see that playing out super well just because, like Nicole, like she mentioned in her confessionals, we can just vote out Ben if he's an easy vote. And then, of course, Nate's not going to Rocks. And so it just would have been game over for me.
yeah,
Now, of course, I didn't know about the idols, and like they would have given me an idol if we did end up losing the challenge. But at the time, no one had any idols. And then me, I'm here thinking, okay, if there's any way I make it through this week, I need to make sure that the challenge gets won. And thankfully, it was an eating challenge. In that,
yeah.
while like Nate and Nicole didn't do super great on that, like me and Ellie absolutely beast moded it.
Smashed it.
We carried the team, destroyed it. We did great. Because I know I've one of the games that my family would play growing up is called like Gross Hearts, and so we'd play a round of hearts, and then the winner of the round gets to make a tablespoonful of whatever they wanted to feed to the loser of the round. And so
That's
playing
hilarious.
that for a while, like you really grow a strong stomach and can eat almost
Yeah,
anything. And so it kind of worked out in my favor. And then
that's
that week,
awesome.
just trying to really get to know people for just kind of where they're at, get a vibe for them. It really was clear to me that they were playing a much slower paced game than we were. Like from being
Hmm.
on Gihan, we were meeting up all the time, everywhere, and just talking to everyone all the time.
Yeah.
And where when I reached out to like the Tigris members on my tribe, they're like, yeah, let's go meet up sometime on Friday. Let's get to know each other. Let's not really do a whole lot of strategizing and things like that. And it was a bit of like a take back because I remembered, oh wait, these people have only had one tribal and haven't had the frantic back and forth
Hmm.
of just dealing with back to back to back to back. And
Yeah.
so they may not be fully accustomed to like a much faster paced like gameplay that like Gihan has had since like the start. We lost every team challenge. And so after like the dinner, I got to get a decent vibe for people. I know I talked a bunch to like Nicole and got to know like Ellie and Nate a bit, and I could tell that Nicole was definitely someone that I wanted to work with in the future, despite
Hmm.
regardless of how the merge ended up going. Because like in both worlds, like if Gihan does somehow come on top in a 5-5 scenario, I would want to pull her under my wing to like have an extra alliance member to help position myself, and then possibly grab a Nate to like eventually take out like Luke and Alexa. Um, or like if things didn't go in our favor and then Tigris like won the rock draw, or just had more people emerge because I knew about one idol but not both of them.
Hmm.
And so if it was a 6-4 at the merge, I would want to try to work my way in with Nicole and then hopefully some of her connections with Tigris,
Yeah.
to hopefully not just be picked off one by one like I think several of the other Gihan members would have been.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of like my general idea going into it. And like obviously I didn't get to play with Ellie a whole lot. She was someone that I also wanted to work with, but
Yeah.
unfortunately she like drew the wrong rock, and just such is life sometimes.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was mainly what that week was, and just trying to get a feel for people that I hadn't talked to at all before until like that dinner.
Definitely. And Ben, I would love for you to just talk about the advantage of
Hmm.
playing at that faster pace, like you talked about with Gihan versus Tigris, and then something we've seen like Nathan in his live reality games podcast talked about how he was so surprised how many people you were really talking to behind the scenes when it seemed like you maybe weren't as active. Just the benefit of being active, being at that
Hmm.
fast pace compared to all of your other competitors.
Yeah, like I think there is an advantage to it because especially when you are thrown into that environment like early on, it's just first person, like you lose a challenge, okay, we don't have a week to getting to know each other. We gotta form an alliance and vote someone out. And
Hmm.
so that mad scrambling, I think, accustoms you to a style of play that is very active and very go, 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 let's make stuff happen. And of course, you have to be careful about that because if people know you're working so hard and getting to know everybody and talking to everybody, that can sometimes bite you in the butt. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, Sam for Tigris, he was like seen as playing way too hard, way too early. And so like that kind of he did a similar style to what like Gihan was doing, but since
Hmm.
the tribe wasn't accustomed to that style and that wasn't what everyone was doing, it ended
Yeah.
up backfiring for him. But especially when like the merge hit and you're able to really you see that clash of styles of just like playing a much more active way and building those connections. I think it really did help me quite a bit when it came to navigating a post-merge environment,
Absolutely.
as well as because you build up those skills beforehand, like pre-merge, and then get to eventually apply that to your post-merge game when a lot of times tribal lines, even though in our like season they stayed pretty strong for a while, but
Hmm.
eventually those deteriorate and you need to create a long-term goal like based
Yeah.
off of that. And I think that higher paced style of play really benefits that, I think.
Yeah. I love that kind of what you said. Sam was playing at the same pace that you guys at Gihan were, but his
Hmm.
tribe was not. So just being able to adapt to your environment and to adapt to your
Yeah.
tribe and know the pace that everyone's playing at and whatever, like if you're playing at that fast pace on a slow paced tribe, you're going to be called out. But if you're
Hmm.
on that fast paced tribe, you need to be at the fastest pace so
Yeah.
that you're
You
ahead
need to keep
of the
up with
curve
them.
to
Yeah.
everyone else. Exactly. I love that. And that's something I think that's unique, maybe more so to a college survivor than a real survivor, is you have a week in between
Hmm.
each tribal council. So just how much really work are you putting into a week? It can take a lot out of you, I'm sure, but
Oh
we can
yeah.
move on to the next portion of the game, which we talked about a little bit already. Just the merge and the rock draw, and you talked about just being risk averse, but
Hmm.
taking that chance. Let's talk about the aspect of leading up to that tribal council. all of the plans that you guys at Gihan tried to have,
Oh boy.
same for Tigris. Walk us through just kind of everything, all the strategy talks that you just
Yeah.
guys were just racking your brain trying to figure out a way not to go to rocks.
Yeah, so we tried to throw everything in the book at like the five Tigers members to try to do everything possible that we could conceive of to try to avoid going to rocks. I know when it showed like my meeting with Nicole to talk about possibly coming up with an idea to say like, oh yeah, like we see Luke and Nathan as a big threat. So if me, Alexa, and Liz come with you guys to split 4-4 on Luke and Nathan,
Mm-hmm.
then if one of them has an idol, we flush it out, and then the other one goes home. Obviously, like Nicole's a smart player. She
Yeah.
mentioned it in her confessional that like, yeah, that just doesn't seem like right. Like, why would they do this? But like, she didn't suspect that I was like lying and like trying to like convince her that this was a good idea. But she saw right through that is, oh, this would end in disaster if like Gihan actually decides to do otherwise.
Yeah.
And so that ended up not working out. Um, I know there was like the fake idol thing that people came up with where it was also just trying, Alexa tried to drag Ellie in with us to because she had a
Yeah.
connection with Ellie, and you saw the library conversation where she's just going after Ellie and just trying
Yeah.
to convince her to pull her in. And I mean, me,
Didn't work.
Luke, and Nathan were all watching the episode at the same time. Where we're like, "Yes, you go, Alexa!" Like that was so like impressive to watch. But then even more impressive on Ellie's end to be like, despite all that,
Yeah.
Alexa, like she's a big threat in that it probably wouldn't be in my interest to go against my tribe. And then
Mm-hmm.
like MJ saying that like if the votes were on Nate, that she would consider flipping.
Yeah.
And that like because that was part of the reason why that we put all the votes on Nate was that if there was a chance of someone flipping, whether it be MJ or Ellie, that would be the best chance we would have to hopefully convince them. It's like, hey, this is a guy
Mm-hmm.
that you have beef with, you probably don't want here, and so we would love to work with you, and that we will get him out of the game for you.
Yeah.
Obviously, it didn't end up working out. In that we eventually did end up going to rocks, and we all said like the Gion people were just like, yeah, we're gonna stick to this because this is the only like way that we really can move forward in a good position in the game is if we do win this rock drive, which statistically was not in our favor. It was a
Yeah.
3 out of 7 to go in our favor, which is about 42% versus the 58% that it doesn't.
Yeah.
And of course, then it's also the 1 out of 7 that I could possibly take it as well. And then I would be out of the game and wouldn't even have the opportunity to try to work my way in with Tigris. But ultimately, we decided that it was the best of the bad options available if no one did end up deciding to flip. And thankfully, it did end up working out in our favor.
Yeah. I mean, crucial moment of chance
Yes,
ended up swinging
honestly.
in Ben's favor. So that was a crazy week, probably the craziest episode that
Mm-hmm.
we had.
It was nutty.
It was a fun one to watch and sad to see Ellie go
Mm-hmm.
in that circumstance. But the next thing I want to talk about are just your immunity wins and just kind of
Mm-hmm.
your immunity prowess throughout the game, helping your tribe, even though you guys did not succeed in the pre-merge mostly, except for that
Mm-hmm.
pre-swap challenge, which you did win. But you had 2 wins right now, tied for the most in Survivor LU history. That is out to the public, so that's something that you can
Yeah.
tap yourself on the back for. Just tell me kind of what you wanted to do with just your kind of gymnastics background, just putting that
Yeah.
into immunity challenges, and if you think that that was ended up being part of your demise as well, just your ability in those challenges.
I definitely like people like I think at the time they didn't really know like how athletic I really was.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up doing gymnastics and I still do it recreationally. It's absolutely love the sport. Being able to do backflips is so much fun. But yeah, and so I think that athleticism really did help with a lot of challenges. Like you saw with like the over unders, I was one of the first people to get
Yeah.
through it. Even though I can't really throw a ball to save my life, so I can't really didn't make it past part 2. But then
Yeah.
like I have a strong memory. You saw me going up against Dawson in the memory challenge and
Mm-hmm.
ended up falling to him. But then once the hanging out challenge came around, like I was like, okay, I need to dig deep to make sure Dawson loses this because I need to make sure that he most likely will go home, or if he
Yeah.
has an idol, that gets flushed out.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was definitely the biggest like challenge threat in the game. And so since like I mean I've always loved climbing stuff, I can hang upside down for an obnoxiously long amount of time as seen on the show. But ended up winning that in that it ended up working in my favor to where I now was safe to possibly be a little more risky with some of the like
Mm-hmm.
toxin like moves I tried to make and trying to try to get things positioned in a way so that if Dawson does have an idol, then it ends up being Luke that went home because I also saw him as a big threat and a contender to win the game for
Yeah.
obvious reasons and just he was playing so well like he was like responsible for getting the finding the two idols for the idols or like the who's at the food challenge
Yeah.
and in a lot of ways would like definitely have won the game if he made final three. And
Absolutely.
so after he got sent home, it was like, okay, Dawson is still in the game. And so I still want to do my best to try to win the next immunity to then make sure that he goes home because like the likelihood that he has two idols is just close to none. But then that was the superlative week. And when I thought Dawson would easily win the if I don't win the game, I want X person to win the game like superlative. But when 5 out of the 7 people said if I don't win the game, I want Ben to win the game, that was immediately like, oh boy, that's very concerning because I thought
Yeah.
I was more under the radar compared to some of the other players. But that
Yeah.
really brought to light is like, oh, people actually really like me and see me as a contender to win the game. And so and especially after like even though I got like tied for the least amount of like balls for the slingshot, I still ended up winning the challenge just by like having I guess better aim than Nicole in the final like 2 showdown that we had
Yeah.
for the tiebreaker. That really cemented the idea that I actually am a challenge beast and very good at these physical challenges in people's minds. And you see it in like people's confessionals where like people are
Absolutely.
like, yeah, I'm scared of Ben. Like he could possibly win out and then maybe win the game as a result. And so that really put the idea in my mind that, okay, I'm not in as good of a position as I thought I was because I thought I positioned myself in a way to not come off as that big of a threat, but obviously like forcing myself to go like really hard to beat Dawson the hanging out challenge and
Mm-hmm.
then performing well in previous immunity challenges even though not winning and then winning my second one back to back, that kind of started the gears turning. It's like, oh, okay, I am going to have to either win out or pull off something like
Yeah.
miraculous in order not to be voted out because I thought the moment I lost the challenge then I would be the person like going home.
For sure. So at this point in the game, really, where after you win that hanging out challenge, we kind of see,
Mm,
at least on the screen, your game really change. And we start seeing you really work behind the scenes. I would love for
yeah.
you to just talk about the importance in your game and just in the game of Survivor in general, just the importance of casual strategic conversations. So, not
Mm,
like, hey, what are we going to do for this vote? But maybe more so just talking about the game casually in a way where you're planting
yeah.
seeds and pushing people in a direction such as Luke,
Mm.
and really sculpting the game in your favor.
Yeah, because like that's the thing is I don't think you can be super forceful with things in Survivor because the moment you do that, people see, oh, he's trying to control the game, and that immediately
Hmm.
puts a big target on your back, and people want to send you home. And that oftentimes just I think talking with people, like grabbing lunch with people or grabbing a meal and just kind of having a general conversation about how you see
Yeah.
the game, where things are going, ideas, stuff like that, where you're not necessarily saying, I want you to do this, but rather just, I don't know, hypothetically, like coming up with ideas or throwing things out, or depending on how the conversation is going,
Yeah.
kind of, casually inserting something in that they might like tag onto or kind of like bite on.
Hmm.
And that was the thing with like the Luke vote out was that I wanted to be intentional about like talking to the remaining like Tigress members of like Dawson, Nate, and Nicole.
Yeah.
Mentioning that like yeah, like they most likely would want to take out or like the remaining Gihan people would want to take out Nate's. And like Dawson has an idol. And then Nicole, like, obviously saw that she really was not down for that. She was working closely with Nate. And so kind of like having those intentional behind the scenes conversations where you're just kind of like talking where things are at. Like I trusted that Nicole wouldn't like go behind my back and screw me over because I was her main in on Gihan. And that most of the other Gihan members just were completely adverse to working with her. And so it's kind of like, hey, I'm the best option you got in this situation. And it ended up really like I also like sent like Nate and Dawson like text messages. Like I almost like essentially said in a text message that like, or you saw like on my meeting with Dawson at the Raw, where he's like, yeah, I think that a lot of people are going to send posts your way. We're essentially saying like, if you have an idol, play it because you're going to get voted out otherwise. While not like directly being as forceful as that, kind of implying that through like your speech, just by hey, this is what I think is going to happen. As well as like sending him like a text message right like the day before Tribal, where it was like, hey, like at the very least, I have thoroughly enjoyed playing the game with you. And like that wasn't showed, but it's kind of like almost like a eulogy, which was pretty funny. And then just to kind of like cement it, that's like, hey, buddy, play your idol if you have it, because that way I would most likely be able to take out Luke because I knew they both had like an agenda against Luke. Now they could have also decided to go with Alexa. That idea was thrown out, but it just seemed like Luke would have been the most logical choice for them in that position, which ended up being the case. And then also like talking to Nate, where like I knew that some of the people on Gihan were like lying to the Tigers members about the plan and stuff like that. So I kind of like said it to him straight in like a text message and just kind of reached out to him as well and just saying that like, hey, like I'm not saying that you should vote Luke. I forget exactly how I phrased it, but it's kind of like implying through a message that hey, if Dawson does have an idol and that you, Dawson and Nicole band together to vote someone, it would work out. And so that ended up being the case. And while I wasn't directly responsible for taking Luke out, I think I did have a hand in kind of molding the game to where that would have happened if Dawson did have an idol. And then, of course, like after at like Final 7, when I won immunity, I was just pushing extremely hard to get out Dawson because like I saw him as the biggest like contender to win the game and also just huge challenge threat, which thankfully other people saw as well. But yeah, so that's how I kind of saw how like just molding the game to how you want it. You can't be too forceful, but at the same time, you want to at least like be planting those ideas in people's mind where it's almost like they came up with the idea themselves, or rather say something that is just seems like a good idea as what would be the best move to make in their position. As you know, in Survivor, you're always like people think so much about their own game, but you also need to be thinking about, okay, in this person's position, what would be the best decision or idea for them? And maybe they haven't even thought up of that yet. And especially if that aligns with what you want to have happen, you can just casually suggest like something that aligns with that. And oftentimes people will bite onto that and take that idea and run with it.
Yeah, I think that's what you did the best out of anyone in the game is just really those organic conversations and just understanding the strategic and social dynamics of the game. And like you said, molding a conversation around what can maybe benefit someone from their perspective, but still advantage you. So I love that. And I would love to hear now at this point in the game, like you said, Final 7, you're looking at Dawson as that big threat. How are you picturing your end game and kind of what was your desired outcome as the game progressed?
Yeah, so my desired outcome was obviously like Dawson getting knocked out at 6, and then at 7, and then of course at Final 6, I was hoping that I had a strong enough alliance with because like I think they showed in the episode like me trying to get an alliance of me, Nathan, Nicole, and Nate together, as well as possibly trying to grab Liz into that as well to make like a final 5, to then take out like Alexa afterwards at 6 because she was excellent speaker, would definitely I think make a very strong case like at Final 3 she made it, would be able to out orate like pretty much anyone else in the game. And so after that at like Final 5, and then I was originally planning to vote out like Nathan because I saw him as like the biggest like social threat in the game. But of course, once like I ended up making it through Final Six with like my idol play, I thought I would take him to the end with me anyway, just because like we were close friends and allies the entire game, and I thought I would beat him anyway. I still don't know if that would have occurred. Like, there's still debate up in the air of who would have won between me and Nathan final three. But it's in before like the whole like fake idol shenanigans happened. It would have been like Nate at final five, or like and then like Nathan at final four, and then a final three of like me, Nicole, and Liz, or possibly like I think I mentioned like me, Nate, and Nicole as a final three that I thought I would be able to beat out. Of course, it didn't completely pan out that way. It's Survivor. I think it's good to have a general plan of what you want to be doing, but not be so rigid and like determined that okay, this is exactly how it has to be, because things can change in an instant.
Absolutely. I would love to pitch you a hypothetical here of at Final Seven, you immediately after Dawson left, you became the biggest threat, keeping Dawson there and just being able to use him as a shield. Kind of what was your plan there? Were you like, hey, Dawson just has to go? Or was that even maybe something you thought about?
I don't think I really thought about using Dawson as a shield, mainly because I knew how good he was at challenges. And if like he won a challenge, then I would most likely be the person voted out, especially when people saw that like, oh, if I don't win the game, I want Ben to win the game. So it's like, oh, okay, well, Dawson won this time. We'll take out Ben while we have the chance, and then vote out Dawson if he loses an immunity. And I think also like he would have had a decent chance at like winning out. So like with the ice challenge we did, Dawson mentioned he had photographic memory, so he would have just aced that one easily. Like there's a good possibility he would win the stair or like the stair and then word puzzle one. And then also like the final four challenge, like, I mean, I don't know how long his endurance would be, but there's also a very good chance that he would do that and then win the game in a landslide.
Absolutely.
And so I just saw it as like, hey, I think it's better to take the opportunity while we have the chance and then either try to win out, or like hopefully my alliances like work out to where like they don't actually want to take me out, or like I know I was thinking of like a fake idol plan for a long time and thought, hey, maybe this is a play that I could try to make if I find myself in trouble at final six and I lose the challenge.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, really, you and Dawson were in the exact same boat there, as where you either needed to win out to win, or to pull off a crazy move like make a fake idol, pitch it, not play it, and then also use it at final five. So we saw at way back in the season at the Megan vote that you had a confessional. I remember watching that confessional. I think it was like hour long or something like that. Of course, it was cut down, and a little bit of foreshadowing. So if you didn't catch that, I encourage you to go back and see what Derek, our editor, put in kind of as some foreshadowing. You said, maybe I'll make a fake idol at some point in the game. And you did that. Just walk me through the entire plan, kind of the story that you were sculpting, and then the successful play of that fake idol.
Yeah, so like I don't know when it was that like the idea like dawned on me. It's like, oh, that would be like an interesting thing to try sometime with like a fake idol. It's like I think I even like I think I had the idea for quite a while, because I remember like seeing on the show, it's like, what if someone did play a fake idol like this? Because I don't think I've ever seen someone actually do a fake idol like that before, in like the actual show. And then when I like called out Megan's idol as fake, when she made a fake one for like to try to save herself, it also like was like, maybe I could actually do this in this game and like see if it works out. Because I remember hearing like from or that like some of the or heard that the materials for the idols and then the immunity necklaces used like in season one were all bought from Hobby Lobby. And so I was like, well, that's good to know, because then if you're able to build something that is made of the same materials that the actual like producers use to make this stuff, then it would be a lot more believable than just like, oh, here's a random thing of like rocks and beads I found that doesn't look anything like we've seen in the game. And so it makes it much harder to sell that when it looks nothing like it. And so the game progressed. It wasn't really on my mind until around like, I guess, Final 7, where I realized okay, if I do lose an immunity challenge, then I'm either going to have to pull off a crazy move to get
Yeah.
myself through final six and final five, or I'm going to end up just getting voted out. And so that's kind of when like the idea started to form. And then of course after I lost the challenge, that's like, okay, this is what I think I need to do, especially after hearing from Nathan that Alexa was targeting me, wanting to get me out, and then also verifying that from Nicole that
Yeah.
yeah, like Alexa was and Liz were trying to like bring her in to try to vote me out essentially. um and so it's like, okay, well, I mean, the way that this would probably work out is like me, Nate, and Nicole would vote Alexa, and then Nathan, Liz, and Alexa would vote me, and then of course Nate and Nicole wouldn't go to Rocks for me, and so I would just end up going home as a result. And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, I need to go through with this. And I ended up like buying some of the like pretty much exact same like beads and string that like you guys used from Hobby Lobby, and some of the feathers as well to fashion it. And then that's also now coming like thinking of a story of how can I best sell this to make this work.
Yeah.
Because like that's the thing is if you just like it's like, oh hey, I got an idol, like that might not be nearly as believable because that's similar to what like Megan did when it was just like the third vote out where she's like, oh
Yeah.
hey guys, look what I got,
When
and
it's
that was
convenient.
it.
Yeah.
When it's convenient. And so I knew that I had to work a narrative into it in order to make it much more believable, and that like while this is like incredibly immoral and I would never do this in real life, like if you want people to believe a lie, you really have to weave in a mostly truthful narrative to like make it work and where
Mm-hmm.
that people will think it's legitimate. And so that was when like, oh hey, the or like idol clue that I got at the start of the game when I took the knowledge, that hasn't been useful for me the entire game since I ended up not finding the idol. But I could use this as a means of trying to better sell that, hey, I took this at the start of the game and found my idol with it. And then being able to like, and then for instance, when I called out Megan's idol as fake, that was also one of the things that really convinced people. It wasn't really shown in the episode, but Nathan was like, "Oh, so that's why you said it was fake because you had the idol. So since like you knew
You
that,
knew. Yeah.
like yeah, you knew for a fact that it was fake because you had the real one." And while like I didn't really like, and that was like, yes, exactly. That's how I knew because even though that was just like good speculation on my end at the time that it was fake, I was
Yeah.
able to say like, oh, that actual event that happened, yeah, that was because I knew, even though that wasn't necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm.
And then like talking about how like the only real time I decided to like or thought about it was like at the merge, and then talking about that a bunch, citing my wonderful statistics that I love so much about statistical averages and how that would have positioned me if I had or hadn't played it. And then like pulling out the fake idol, or not the, or yeah, pulling out the fake idol, but also pulling out the clue, showing it to Liz,
Yeah.
showing it to everybody's like, hey, yeah, look at this. Like in like since it was in my desk for so long, it looked beat up, so it was also like, oh, this is legitimate, which it was.
Yeah.
And all of that combined, and then also like pulling it out at final six, which was also part of my idea because if you pulled it out earlier in the week, people would have time to strategize, think around it, come up with a plan to try to work around it, split votes in a way so that it would be not in my favor. But like you find oftentimes that like people in general tend to be very bad at making good decisions in moments of crisis or like intense like stress or pressure.
Absolutely.
And so that was kind of like also part of my idea was if I can create a chaotic enough environment to where like they have to come up with a quick plan on the fly and like just make it just difficult and stressful, then there's a decent chance that they would not put votes on me and instead direct those votes to Nate or possibly even band with me to vote out Alexa. And so that was kind of like the general idea going into that. And then, of course, like I thought through this ahead of time that at final six, so it's like, okay, what I'm going to do is then say that I'm going to take a big risk and save my idol for final five because I think I created enough chaos at final six tribal to guarantee myself final four because since idols have to be played at final five, there's like no way that I wouldn't be playing it that week. Yeah. And so it ended up just working out like perfectly because I knew that, you know, while I didn't think there was that great of a chance of it working out, I thought I would just try my best, see what happens. It's Survivor. When else would I have the opportunity to try to do something like this? And
Yeah.
then when it ended up working out, I was such a happy person because I was like, that was one of the moves that I had been wanting to make for so long. And the fact that
Yeah.
it worked out like just as I wanted it to
Perfectly.
was made my week.
It was absolutely, I mean, the absolute perfect example of the way to craft a perfect lie,
Mm,
using real life events, using other people's assumptions, using real um, like conversations and props
mhm.
and stuff like that. I mean, if Liz would have paid attention, she would have been able to call your bluff because
Yeah,
the same
exactly.
idol that she found was the
Mhm.
idol that your clue was pointing to. So she knew
Mhm.
that clue, playing off the shock and the pressure, like you said. And Nathan
Mhm.
talked about it. He said, I suck
Yeah.
in intense situations because I should have known that was fake. Everyone should have known it's fake because no one's ever in the history of Survivor brought out an idol before Tribal and it was real.
Yeah.
Maybe one time in an international version, but just the perfect lie, the perfect execution. I know that as production, we were looking back and I said, that's the best move in Survivor history. I don't know when it'll be topped. So we'll have to see for future seasons, but amazing play. You get through final five and you're going into final four, that immunity challenge. Walk us
Mhm.
through just the anticipation, then kind of nerves, putting your hand on Sparky, and just that lapse of concentration at 1 second that did cost you that challenge.
Yeah. Oh man. So I knew going into it that it's like whatever the final four challenges, I need to win this if I'm gonna
Yeah,
win the game. I thought that you guys would be doing a thing similar to what like Modern Survivor does, where like in Final Four, the winner of the
yeah,
challenge picks one person to go with them to Final Three, and then the final two face off in some sort of like either fire building challenge or some other thing.
yeah,
Um, and that was also something that I was banking on because I didn't know at the time, and like it wasn't mentioned until later that oh actually we're not doing that, and so I thought I had two chances, but then once I found out that oh you guys aren't doing a like a tiebreaker final four challenge for kind of like how Modern Survivor does it, but only if the
yeah.
votes are tied between two people. I was like, okay, this is make it or break it time for the final four challenge because I thought that I would win the game if I did win the final four challenge, but then there's no way I'm making final three if I lose it.
Hmm.
And so when went out, found out what it was, we headed out to Sparky. I'm like, okay, um, I don't know when else I'm gonna be able to play Survivor again, so I'm gonna give it my all and stand out here
Yeah,
until my legs drop. And
yeah,
it was around the 3.5 hour point where we were rotating around and just I mean, you're cold, you're mentally tired, and just a small like gasp and concentration when I was moving my hand up to the next position that I actually took my hand off Sparky to move it up to his finger off his nose.
yeah,
And that ended up costing me the challenge because I didn't even notice I did it at the time
hmm,
until I was called out on it. And then I was just so crushed afterwards because I was like, man, if only I hadn't done that and I was able to stick it out for longer and possibly win the challenge, who knows? I could have possibly even won the game. But
yeah,
it's just sometimes in life you win some and lose some. And that was like part of what really like crushed me was it wasn't even like a strategic error on my end.
yeah,
Because I had got myself to that point in the position where I could win Final Four challenge and then win the game. But just that small last in judgment, it was a small mistake on my end that ended up costing me that challenge. And then um, most likely the game. Of course, it would have been interesting to see a Final Four face off between me and Nathan, but we weren't able to see that because of that.
yeah,
And going into like the rest of the week leading up to Final Tribal, I thought maybe my only bet is to try to convince Nathan that hey, we're the two strongest players. Like we should make the season great.
yeah,
Like play it out at duke it out at final three. And then just let the best man win. Because like I know we were really close friends and still are, and like work together the entire game. But in the end, he ended up making the right decision, which was voting me out and then winning almost unanimously.
hmm,
But of course, like watching the finale, like as it was dropped with like everybody in the room, even though it was like almost 2 years ago now, or I guess like a year and a half, it still like hurt my soul a little bit to just watch the camera as like I moved my hand off, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no. But such is life. Sometimes you win some
Yeah.
and you lose some, and I really don't think there was much else I could have like done to like play my game better other than just not make that mistake at the Final Four challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think you handled it with grace. Of course, that's a
Mm-hmm.
hard thing to happen. But like you said, it was make it or break it, win or go home at that point. And just that 1 second, and that was it. And I do believe, I mean, I think you would have been out there all night if it was
Oh,
if that had
absolutely.
happened. I know that you were in it to win it. You and Nicole both kind of were just mentally just in another zone. Um,
Mm,
so we were heartbroken to see kind
mm,
of that happen. But like you said, you go into final tribal council, you do that big push with Nathan. It's not
mm.
successful, which I mean, on his end was the right decision.
Yeah,
I know you're
exactly.
saying it would have been maybe up in the air, but I think Ben, I think you might have pulled it out
Mm,
unanimously in that situation, especially if you convince Nathan to take you and not
mm,
take you out. I think it would have been, or at least given you the chance to go for a Final Four tiebreaker.
mm,
But where you are now the last member of the jury, Final Tribal Council with Nathan, Nicole, and Liz. Tell me
mm.
what your vote was looking like going in, and was there any chance of swaying that? What were your thoughts on kind of the jury on the
Yeah.
finalists answering questions and stuff like that?
So I was dead set on that, Nathan, going into it. There wasn't
Yeah,
really much opportunity to sway me at all because I just, going into it from what I saw, he played by far the best social game out of anyone.
yeah,
He was like never seen as like his name like never came up like ever in the game outside of like the merge where he got 5 votes put on him, but that was only because
yeah,
they of the like Gihan people, they didn't want Nathan possibly drawing the rock. They wanted like Alexa or
hmm,
Luke or Liz to possibly draw it instead of Nathan. So it was more of a sense of, hey, we want to keep Nathan around
yeah,
because of that if it does end up going to rocks. And so I think that he just played such a good game. And that it's not to say that, like, Nicole played a bad game or like, well, I felt like Liz didn't really do that much in the game
yeah,
a lot of the time outside of just like giving like the idol that she found because of Luke's clue to
yeah,
Nathan. But it's still like with Nicole, like she played a decent game given her situation. Like she was in a tough situation, but then of course her idol play that didn't end up doing anything at Final Five, and the fact that she had that for so long and then didn't do
yeah,
anything with it to possibly really shake up the game either at like merge or even like when MJ went out, she could have played it on MJ and then taken out like a Gihan and then evened up 4-4 again, and then who
yeah,
knows, we could have even go to rocks a second time. But um I think that really seeing that in comparison to like the other two people is just, and plus like Nathan was my closest ally the entire game and like
yeah,
closest friend, in that like I said in my confessional, if I don't win the game, I want Nathan to win the game. And so it made me really happy for him that when he did end up doing that. But like going into it, like I knew that like Luke would definitely be very down for Nathan, probably Alexa as well. But it surprised me just how much of Tigris was also like huge fans
yeah,
of Nathan, because I thought that they would possibly like be voting Tigris strong since I like for a while I thought that was such a strong mentality that they're like, hey, like we want to vote Nicole because like she's the last remaining Tigris, she made it to the end. But just kind of talking to the jury right before final tribal hit, it was like it seemed kind of self-evident that Nathan would pretty much have the game in the bag. And then of course like with questions and then how voting went, Nathan was almost unanimous with one person, Nate, voting Nicole.
hmm,
Which like I mean I'm glad she got one vote. Like she definitely deserved it, but
yeah,
it definitely like was very strongly favored toward Nathan on the jury, which like I'm
for sure.
happy he won it because like again if I didn't win the game, I really wanted him to win it.
Yeah, man, definitely. I think it was just a case of Nathan really took advantage of
Mm,
all the just scenarios that came to him, and maybe Nicole really missed out with that idle play.
mm,
Really kind of Tyrus felt burned by her not using that, and
yeah,
I think, I mean, if Nicole plays her idol for Nate at that final six
6.
tribal, Alexa goes out there, and if she can sit at the end with a combination of Nicole Nate and Liz, or maybe even Nicole, Nate, and Nathan, that
Yeah.
she
Oh,
has
she
a
could have
very
absolutely
good
done
chance.
that. Hmm.
Because I know, sadly, we love Nate, but he was not going to get any votes on the jury.
Hmm.
But Nicole playing an idol play that really cemented her
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
game and then winning Final Four. I mean, we'll talk about this with Nicole whenever I get the chance to sit down with her later this week. But yeah, like you said, that jury was kind of burned and really just swung towards Nathan.
Hmm.
But ending it all, Ben, I would love for you just to talk about your experience as a whole with Survivor,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
then tell us if you had the chance to come back, would you return to play again?
Yeah, so I guess my overall experience, like, I absolutely loved my time playing on season one. It was definitely some of my favorite college memories. And I know, like, even like afterwards, like, one of the things I've really appreciated is just the community aspect of just like, hey, now
Hmm.
that like it's all over, we can be friends, and just kind of like seeing Survivor LU get built up, like from
Yeah,
even like future seasons, like season two, season three, now season four that just ended, kind of like welcoming those people in, and really just building like just genuine like friendships. And like some of my closest friends are from like
yeah,
Survivor LU, and it's been really cool to kind of like see that even like after the fact.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, just kind of just being like a awesome and like accepting community, and just being able to be like involved, and kind of like, hey, we all have this thing in common, and just like a group of people bonding over the game of Survivor.
Absolutely.
And it's been so cool to see that. And yeah, and if I ever do get asked to come back, if we ever do a returning season, I would 100% be down. I would be a little scared going into it, because like I know people are gonna see me as like a massive threat, and I'm
Yeah.
like just try not to get voted out first. But I would do my best if ever asked back.
For sure, man. I think, like you said, it would be an uphill battle, but I would love to see you back. Um, in my opinion, my favorite, and I think the best player that we have seen in Survivor so far at
Mhm.
Liberty University, Ben. It's been a pleasure being able to talk to you. You played a great game. You took advantage of situations that came to you. You made great, deep relationships, took advantage of small conversations, and just played an incredibly secretively manipulative game where you always had your say in a lot of big decisions. And I think that's really what made you such a threat at the end of the game. And we were very close to seeing a Ben win. But dude, it was
Almost.
awesome getting to talk to you.
Mhm.
We look forward to maybe seeing you again in the future of Survivor. But I will be talking to Nicole, Nathan, and maybe hopefully some of our
Mhm.
more of our finalists of Survivor LU Genesis. So be on the lookout for that coming soon. And if you haven't been able to watch the finale, if you need to catch up on any of our episodes, just go to our YouTube Survivor LU and watch those, get caught up on the season. It was an awesome one. Ben, thanks for being a part of it, man. We appreciate you a lot. And we'll see everybody in the next video.
Thanks so much, Logan. Bye, everyone.